Well, hello and welcome to Business Morning. Still the last trading week of November, and also today, the 303rd meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee. That concludes today, and it's the last one for this year, and definitely you can catch it live at 1:30 p.m. Today. We'll see what the decision is going to be. It's consensus is another cut, at this point, but let's see if we'll get any surprises. But let's get straight to the program now. It was a bearish mood on Nigerian equities markets. That deepened yesterday and sustained, we still saw, sustained sell pressure, hit about 26 stocks. Market capitalization slipped by another 69 billion, closing at 91.34 trillion. Now, the all-share index also retreated, shedding 108 points, about 0.08%. Look mild, when you look at it from the outside, though, but it finished 143,000 points. The downturn was driven largely by declines in key mid and large cap counters, including Vitafoam, UB Africa, Prudential, Sterling Financial Holdings, and Transcorp. Investors remain cautious right there in that market. So that's the picture right there. But compared to the Friday trade, I would see volume value in deals, that was more, and showing that, investors were still, eager to sell off most of those stocks. And we see E-Transact there, topping the gainer chart, 9.06%, and MPFM, that's leading the losers chart, 7.85% down. We also see Prestige and Sterling Insurance there. Then we also make the calls on that counter, 7% drop there. So not the big names we normally see, but let's see if there's some kind of reprieve coming after the NPC decision today. Maybe investors might get excited. We'll definitely look out for that. But let's get a check now on the oil market. We're seeing oil prices kicking off again, just like yesterday, down. We see 0.63% down for Brent crude, $62.97 a barrel, still holding on to the $60 level. But we see WTI, that's still trading below 60, but $58.49 a barrel, still the range trade. We'll find out what's driving sentiment in the oil market later on. Still about geopolitics, with talks to end the Ukraine war still inconclusive. Traders are balancing, geopolitical risk against market fundamentals. So that's why we're seeing that play out. And still, talking about the central bank, they've warned that individuals and businesses that repeatedly issued dot checks now face a 5-year restriction from operating bank accounts in the country. That's the latest one I found on the CBN website yesterday. The Apex Bank issued a notice in a new circular aimed at tightening financial discipline and curbing fraudulent check practices within the banking system. According to the CBN, the penalty targets serial offenders who consistently issue checks without sufficient funds, a practice that undermines trust and disrupts, commercial transactions. Under the revised guidelines, banks are required to report repeated dot check cases to the CBN, after which offenders may be blacklisted and restricted from accessing financial services for up to 5 years. So if you don't have money in that account, do not write a check. All right, to tax now. The Federal Inland Revenue Service, they've issued a clarification regarding the operation and tax treatment of express payments amid concerns from taxpayers and businesses about its implications. In a recent statement, the FIRS explained that express payments are legitimate digital transactions and reaffirmed that all applicable tax rules remain in force. The clarification seeks to provide guidance for businesses and individuals using the payment platform to ensure compliance with tax obligations. The agency stressed that taxpayers should continue to report transactions accurately and that the use of the express payment does not exempt them from value-added tax, withholding taxes, or other relevant levies there. So we're still paying attention to all those tax rules at this point. All right, let's get a check now on government spending. The Ebonyi State government has unveiled a landmark 884 billion naira budget proposal for the 2026 fiscal year. The state governor, Francis Wufuru, who presented the proposal during a civic engagement session in Abakaliki, the state's capital, says the unprecedented rise from previous annual budgets, averaging about 89 billion naira, was enabled by increased fiscal space following the removal of fuel subsidy at the federal level. He says the government's ambitious blueprint, tagged Budget of Actualization and Hope, is dedicating more than 84% of the spending plan to infrastructure and economic development. Take a listen.
Knowing fully well that with God, all things are possible. That's all the items listed in this budget, especially when it comes to infrastructural and human capital development, by the special grace of God, and with your support and your prayer, that we are going to implement it 100% in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Again, in this budget, if you look at it critically, I'm sure many of you must have observed that the infrastructure or infrastructural development or economic sector is housing above 84% of the budget. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And anything we couldn't implement next year, we'll roll it over to the year 2027.
All right, so the Securities and Exchange Commission and the SCMI Summit officially kicked off spotlighting technology-led compliance in Nigeria's financial markets. Regulators, fintech leaders, and market operators, they gathered to explore how digital tools can strengthen, transparency, reduce risk, and improve market efficiency. Take a listen.
To implement the Act effectively.
In Lagos, the Securities and Exchange Commission, in partnership with the Nigerian Capital Market Institute, convened its highly anticipated 2025 Compliance Summit.
Because now we're looking at technology, we're looking at innovation, and we're looking at how we can...
The gathering brings together regulators, market operators, fintech innovators, and virtual asset service providers to explore how technology can drive stronger compliance in Nigeria's evolving capital markets.
Some of the focus that's always come on compliance is with regards to emerging areas, especially in the digital asset space. With new areas, with new technology, come new risks. So we're going to be looking a little bit on virtual asset service providers, some of the intricate reporting requirements that concern that area of business.
The Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Dr. Omotimi Agama, in his address highlighted the importance of innovation to Nigeria's capital market. Attention is also on the Investment and Securities Act, as stakeholders look to modernize tools for compliance.
It reaffirms SEC as the apex regulatory authority of the Nigerian capital market. Then, it clearly delineates the issue of the objective of SEC, functions of SEC, and powers, unlike the 2007 Act, whereby the three were mopped up in the same section of Section 13, where it was not, they are not segregated as the powers, the functions, and the objective.
From a virtual asset provider perspective, the adoption of technology-led compliance systems ensures operators demonstrate transparency and trust to users.
Yeah, we're very excited about the SEC's leadership when it comes to innovation in this space. As a representative of the digital asset category, we've always been very intense about compliance, and we've always been compliance first in our approach. I think it's a category that is attracting a lot of younger people, and we, being the younger demography, are the future of the capital markets. And the SEC is really trying to balance that emerging digital asset space with the compliance rigor that the industry is not very used to. So we are very supportive of that effort, and we're excited about the SEC's approach towards innovation.
As day one of the summit wraps up, it's clear that Nigeria's capital markets is at a turning point. The SEC is betting big on technology-led oversight. Digital asset providers are stepping into a regulated future, and market operators are retooling for a more transparent, digitized world of finance.
All right, now to our first conversation. Nigeria's housing finance market has long struggled with limited long-term capital, leaving middle-income earners with few options for mortgages. and developers constrained by funding. Now we're going to explore major steps towards addressing this challenge. The Mortgage Refinance and Expansion Investment Fund, or MREIF. Join us in the studio now to discuss. We have Mr. Wale Odutola as a Group CEO, ARM Holding Company, who will discuss how the fund actually works and why listing it now is strategically important. It's great to have you on the show, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Fantastic.
Happy to be here.
Yes, sir. So, when I look at the housing markets, if you're looking at one's trying to, buy a property, it's been a very difficult process, especially for those that you don't have that lump sum, to go and buy,
absolutely,
a property. And now we have this fund. From a market standpoint, what specific gap do you think MREIF is going to close here? Because most of the time, you hear people talk about mortgages and you find out that a mortgage is just maybe 2 years. Who's going to pay that off in just 2 years?
I think you answered the question with your question, actually.
Right.
I think the mortgage market in Nigeria is almost non-existent. We have roughly about 32,000 mortgages in issue, and that's a nation with over 200 million people. South Africa, for instance, has 1.6 million mortgages in issue. This is as of 2022. That tells you there's a huge gap because, one, the average Nigerian cannot really, in reality, aspire to his own home. And if it did, he would not be able to fund it. So that culture is almost non-existent in Nigeria, where as a young man or young woman coming out of school, getting a decent job, you're already thinking about getting on the housing ladder in order for you to continue to grow your assets, because one of the biggest ways wealth is accumulated in any nation is through property. So that is non-existent in Nigeria. Now, the gap MREIF fills is providing that long-term capital that allows financial institutions to create mortgage products and then sell those mortgage products to the average Nigerian, who then, through that product, is able to acquire a home and begin to build, wealth as in doing so.
Right. And, looking at this recent listing, how does the listing help, to help us reach this goal that we're trying to get to?
So one of the biggest challenges I think we've had growing this product has been visibility and trust. Nigeria, from a retail standpoint, we're not a credit market. That your average Nigerian does not want to take credit, understandably so. Expecting someone to profitably take credit at 30%, 40% per annum, it will ruin the average person. More so when you then start thinking about this on a long-term standpoint as well, where you're taking credit for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you would have doubled the amount you're paying back in 3 years if you did that. Now, the listing allows us a number of things. It allows liquidity, i.e. for investors that are already in the fund that provided the original capital for the fund. Listing it allows them create liquidity from it if they want to sell some of it and bring in other investors into the fund. Listing provides visibility as well. It provides transparency. It provides a lot more clarity around how the fund is priced, so that the average person can see it and understand how it works. So all of those things I think we have achieved with the listing. And I think it also then provides a pathway to ensuring that from 250 billion that we currently have under management in the fund, it provides a pathway for us to get to the 1 trillion program size that the federal government approved for it.
250 billion.
250 billion.
Right now.
Right now.
The target is 1 trillion.
1 trillion.
Okay, that's for the fund. So the model has been described as a blended model, involving MOFI, ARM, and the private sector. How is this, what makes this combination viable to actually kickstart, the mortgage market in Nigeria?
Okay, so,
because we've had so many.
Yeah. So let me tell you my personal experience. I have a mortgage, or I had a mortgage that is running now. That mortgage started at 16% per annum in terms of interest on the mortgage. And in the last 3 years, it went up to 33% interest per annum, which you can't, it's hard for you to argue against it given the sort of volatility we've had in macroeconomic variables over the last 4 or 5 years or so. Affordability becomes a problem for me, clearly. And how then does the average Nigerian deal with that sort of dynamic? Now, what MREIF allows us to do is blend government's investments with private sector investment. And government, knowing that this particular product and this particular sector needs to be catalyzed, you cannot allow full market forces to be engaged in an environment like this where there's so much volatility in macroeconomic variables. Government recognizes that and they say, well, we'll put down X amount to show our commitment to developing this market. We expect that you would crowd in private sector investors who naturally will demand market rates for their investments, whilst we will take a haircut or take a step back because we know the long-term goal is really to catalyze this market. But by blending that, then you're then able to offer interest rates at what we're offering, 9.75%, single-digit interest rates. Without a product like this and without ensuring that the private sector is involved in its thinking, in its development, and its execution, we will not be able to promise a 20-year mortgage, for instance. So I think what the government essentially has done is put their money where their mouth is, commit to a long-term plan that helps catalyze the mortgage sector, and allow the private sector drive that plan going forward.
Right, and talking about short-term loans, definitely that's a big bane for the mortgage industry. So we're talking long-term loans here for about 15, 20 years, even more.
20 years.
20 years.
20 years.
All right. Let me not be an Oliver Twist. Yeah. But is there any risk? You did mention single-digit interest rate. Is there a risk? What happened to you could happen.
No. So our rates are fixed. Our rates are fixed for the duration of the mortgage. So if you lock in a mortgage at 9.75, it's fixed through the life of that mortgage. So there is no risk of that happening with MREIF.
Right. All right. So definitely, I'm sure there's some home seekers, at this point, are looking to buy a house, and they'll be wondering, how do I latch on? To this, and is it going to get to everybody?
So when we started out, we're at zero, obviously. In the space of 3-4 months, we've ramped up to over 1,000 mortgages and disbursed over 63 billion naira. That is a lot in a market that was almost non-existent prior to MREIF coming on board. So I think the risk is you not latching on early enough to get on this train, because the train is moving. So my encouragement to anybody that wants to own a home, and we should all aspire to own a home, is to, there are various avenues that you can access the mortgage. We have a website, MREIF.com, that you can log into, do an assessment to see where you fall, how much of a mortgage you can afford. On that website as well, we have properties that are listed by various developers. You can do an assessment of the properties, go for site visits, and secure your properties. And through that website, you are then able to begin your application process through any of the 17 financial institutions that we're currently working with. Alternatively, if your bank is listed or your PMI is listed as one of the institutions that we're currently working with, then you can work through your bank as well, secure your property, approach your bank, request for a mortgage, the MREIF mortgage specifically, and your bank will walk you through that process. Typically, we find that it takes between 3 to 4 weeks to complete that process, which is really fast given how long it typically takes to do this.
Right.
So it's a fairly straightforward process, and you either approach your bank or you go on the platform and walk through that process on the platform.
Okay, so I'm just imagining now, take for instance, I'm trying to buy a home, at this point, and I earn maybe between, per annum, maybe around 2 million, $1 million per annum. What house price category can I aim for? And How much can I qualify with that kind of salary in a year?
So the way I would answer that question is that if you go on the site, you have a mortgage calculator that essentially matches your income to how much you can reasonably take as a mortgage. Bearing in mind also that you're only allowed almost by law and practice to only take up to 30% of your take-home income for a product like this. So all of those things have to come in play when you're taking a mortgage. And the truth also is that as individuals, we typically want the best for ourselves, and we stay in a particular area at this point in time. We're renting that property and giving wealth out to someone else. Oftentimes, you find that you are not able to buy a property in that area at this point in time. But what is important is that you get on that housing ladder as quickly as possible. So you may have to move a little bit far out, but it is your property. You're building equity, you're building wealth. And in doing so, you can then build that wealth and ultimately use that as your equity in another property in probably an area that you prefer. But the key thing is to start and get on that ladder, because if you don't get on that ladder, it will continue to run away from you. So that would be my advice to you.
All right, and definitely we have the retail investors, we have institutional investors. What's in it for the institutional investors?
So we have altogether in this fund, we have altogether about 13, 14 institutional investors who have provided the initial capital. Those are made up of pension fund administrators, insurance companies, and banks. Those investors are getting commercial returns on the monies that they invested, but beyond that, they're also able to showcase it to their clients and use that to attract new clients as well. So on one hand, they're investing to get a return, but on the other hand, it's a product that they can also sell to their clients to ensure that their clients get the benefit of home ownership.
All right. So at what point do we see action? When it comes to liquidity, and we're seeing people actually accessing loans.
We are seeing action, as I said. We're over 1,000 units now in terms of mortgages that we've issued. We've disbursed over 63 billion naira. 63 billion. 63 billion naira to individuals who have bought properties and are living in those properties now. 1,000 units could potentially be 4,000 individuals that this has impacted, assuming a family of 4. Beyond that as well, that ecosystem that it is supporting, you have builders, you have welders, you have plumbers, you have electricians, you have all of those things. So the impact is far-reaching for this program beyond just the home ownership, but what it catalyzes within the housing market, within the construction sector, and the jobs that it creates as well. I think when the government thought about this, it was all of those things that was envisaged. So not just someone owning a home, but how you're able to catalyze the economy by creating jobs, by providing food on people's table, by ensuring that Nigerians are gainfully employed in a sector that is strategically important to the country.
All right, so what else do we see, from here? Are we seeing more, issuances? What's next?
So we expect that this issue, the 250 billion, will be exhausted by the first quarter of next year. It then means that, once we prove that concept, which we are proving that it's successful, we're then able to approach the market again to raise additional capital to continue to do the same things. Like I said, the target is 1 trillion naira, and we hope that we can get to that trillion very, very quickly and then start all over again.
Right. All right. So, definitely we know the NPC, CBN NPC, they're meeting today. They're going to give us direction, for lending rates. And I want to imagine that even if the central bank or the NPC keeps raising interest rates, it's not going to affect this.
Well, it makes the cost, raising interest rates makes it a lot more expensive on one hand, but like I said, our rates are fixed. So it will not impact it.
Fantastic.
But our hope is that we'll see rates continue to gravitate lower.
Yeah, we hope rates keep going down at this point in Nigeria. It was great having this conversation.
Likewise.
With you, sir. Mr. Wale Odusola is the Group CEO, ARM Holding Company. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you very much, Larry.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll find out what to expect for the NPC meeting today. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Well, as I said before, today the NPC will make that decision. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank will decide how much it will cost you to borrow money from the banks. We'll find out. The last meeting we had a cut. Consensus is we might see another cut. Let's talk to Dumebi Oluwole now, she's the manager of Financial Derivatives Company. Great to have you, Dumebi. Definitely, I'd like to get your expectations here. It almost seems like it's going to be another cut, but any surprises expecting?
I mean, we're not expecting any surprise. Very much like you have said, the consensus is another rate cut, but we do think it's going to be conservative and very cautious, considering that inflation numbers that we have seen, though, with a consecutive downward trend for the past at least 5 months, the base effects or the rebasing exercise is very, very much prominent in how those numbers are looking. And as such, it's extremely important that the MPC is very cautious of that fact. So while they will be reducing, while we do think that they're going to be reducing rates, they will still be very cautious by how much rates are reduced.
All right, so it seems everything is going well on the macro side, seeing what's playing now with inflation. That we see the Naira, that also strengthened yesterday. It's also, been trading within a range, which is below sub 1,500. But what other concerns do you think this MPC will be looking at in this meeting?
Yeah, of course, I think the security situation is one thing that the MPC will definitely consider. Reason being that it does have spillover effects on other aspects of the economy that will eventually, impact prices. Remember that the core responsibility of the central bank is price stability, both on the inflation aspect and on the exchange rate side. And what the security situation means for the exchange rate side, for instance, is reduced investor confidence that could eventually impact capital inflows and then impact, the level of foreign exchange that is circulating within the economy, and of course impacting, the exchange rate in itself on a negative level, by increasing, downward currency pressures. And if that is the case, of course the MPC will want to consider the impact of that and how that will definitely affect the macro economy in terms of, imported prices and generally operational expenses for businesses, especially with the fact that we're going into the festive season. So that's on one end for the exchange rate part. On the inflation bit, we have seen that the states that are highly affected by the insecurity situation in Nigeria, which, for instance, has pretty much aggravated in the last couple of weeks, are the northern states. And these northern states, are very much Nigeria's food production hotspots. And if food production is reduced from those states, what it means is that inflation across the country, especially in food receiving states, high food consumption states like Lagos, we most likely would see inflation, spike in the coming weeks or in the coming months. So that's definitely something that I think the MPC will consider, considering the implication and the effect that it has on the broader nation.
Right, and definitely looking at the mandate, for the central bank, and it's mostly price stability and full employment. And you wonder, at this point, when a country gets that tag, as a country of particular concern, and you wonder what tool will the central bank or the MPC have in, creating some kind of buffer for the economy when you have this kind of situation?
I mean, in terms of the tools that they have, forward guidance and signaling, that's pretty much what they have to do anything really to kind of uplift investor and market confidence towards the Nigerian economy. And pretty much in terms of forward guidance, what this looks like is announcing, through the NPC that the central bank is definitely still on its path of orthodoxy and will continue to do what it takes to ensure that prices are stable in the economy. They will also be very transparent in their, data reporting and on how much work the central bank has done so far to ensure that there is enough forex supply, there's substantial forex liquidity, there is monetary discipline across all central bank, disciplines, pretty much as with the commercial banks, mortgage banks, and also ensuring that there's that strong monetary policy transmission mechanism. And in that way, right, they're signaling to investors that Nigeria is still, ready to do business. But the flip side of this is that the inflow of forex that we truly need, which is long and patient capital, will take some time to come in. All of the signaling and all of the forward guidance will just pretty much strengthen FPI inflows, which we have seen more than triple in the last couple of months, at least between 2024 and 2025. So if that is the case, it means that there's still much work that needs to be done. And this is not solely the responsibility of the monetary policy. This now calls for a lot more work, a lot more ground efforts, a lot more grounding with the fiscal authorities. Insecurity, tackling insecurity, ensuring that we have stable FDI inflows, that business owners feel that they're supported and the ease of doing business in Nigeria is strengthened consistently, actually rests solely, well, not solely, but rest more than 50% on the hands of the fiscal authorities. And not until all of the economic agents see fiscal authorities move the needle in this regard through transparency, reducing the government's trust deficit between themselves and the people, policy implementation, actual policy implementation, and pretty much just really solving the insecurity problem, we will still see investors really wait and will definitely take the waiting stance on Nigerian economy.
All right, let's look at the forex market now. We see the naira actually gain the last session after falling, in three other sessions. What do you think is driving sentiment there?
I will say over the last 2-3 weeks, we have seen a lot of nexus, right? The nexus between the political economy, policy pronouncements, and the core macroeconomy really take effect. From when Trump made the announcement of intervention on Nigeria, in Nigeria, to the increase in the number of kidnappings and insurgencies, and how we've seen the markets react, especially the FX market. What that tells us is that the markets are definitely paying attention to the Nigerian economy, and and they will keep moving, in tandem. The market will keep dancing to the tune of the political economy right now. What we have seen, though, in the last couple of days that has supported the parallel market rate has been, to some extent, stable FX supply. The FX reserves are still strong. Market sentiments, especially coming from the successful Eurobond issuance that was oversubscribed, significantly, at least over 5x. That also, supported the Naira and kept it at the band which we're talking about, between 1,450 and 1,500. And we do expect that trend to continue, just barring any shocks that we will see from the, security situation and political economy.
All right, thanks so much. Maybe we'll all be bracing at this point, investors and analysts, watching out with what this MPC decision is going to be, the last one for this year, the 303rd meeting. Thank you so much, Dumebi Oluwole. She's the manager with Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll take a moment now. When we come back, we drill down on Nigeria's oil and gas industry. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Well, Nigeria's energy giant, the NNPCL, has made headlines with its full year 2024 results. The company declared a profit after tax of 5.4 trillion naira, up from 2.2 trillion naira in 2023, while revenues, that soared to about 45.1 trillion naira. So latest earnings there. Well, let's unpack what this means for the industry. Joining us now is Dosu Odekunle, he's MD, Market Synergy. Great to have you in the show.
Bloody morning. Nice to be here.
Fantastic. Great to have you. And, we're going to be talking a lot now about what's played out in Nigeria's oil and gas industry and definitely this latest earnings. But before we get into that, interestingly today, the former group managing director of the NNPC, that's Dr. Jackson Gaius Obaseki, he turns 80. He serves as the group managing director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, I think 1999 to 2003. Known for spearheading robust reforms in the nation's oil and gas sector during his tenure, including structural, operational, and legal reforms, and expanding the external marketing strategy. So, in your view, seeing where he left off the NNPCL and Nigeria's oil and gas industry, how do you see what's played out so far?
In my view, well, I would say they're on the right track. NNPC has had its bumps, along the way, as with any organization that is developing and growing. But he set the right pace and right foundation. I can tell you that during his tenure, it was an era where Nigerian companies flourished in crude trading and products trading. And he gave them an opportunity to grow. A lot of those companies are still doing well. Some of them are conglomerates now, they've evolved. And NNPC continues to be a catalyst in the Nigerian space and, West Africa, and even the global market as it stands today. And on that foundation, quite a few GMDs have actually taken what he built upon. They worked on it, improved on it, and that's why NNPC can declare the bumper harvest it has today in terms of achievements done in the past.
Right, and talking about a bumper harvest there with these remarkable numbers, profit after tax 5.4 trillion and revenue of 45.1 trillion. What would you say are the key drivers, behind this these earnings?
Well, they improved their operations. They definitely targeted the security issues quite tastefully, and that is shown in the results in terms of how production improved, operational issues were worked on, they tightened losses, and the numbers show for themselves. I mean, data never lies. When NNPC boldly decided to start announcing their accounts, their audited accounts, it seemed like it would be, a tough thing for them, but they are evolving. Remember that this is just 3 years in where they've started, the level of transparency has increased, starting from the predecessor, and even now under the current GMD. They continue to improve production. You can even tell from, taking from Mr. President's instruction in terms of, increase in oil. NUPRC have run with it, NNPC are running with it. And then you now have increased production, the number of rigs, and there is production going up. So that actually started off in 2024, and I'm sure that by the end of this year, when they're declaring for 2025, will probably even be better numbers.
Right, now we see the company, attributes part of the success to, the Naira's float, downstream reforms and cost discipline.
Ladi, I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, so I said the company attributes part of the success to, the Naira's float, downstream reforms and cost discipline. But how sustainable are these factors, going forward, in your opinion?
So I don't think it's a whitewash. They targeted key issues, so which is insecurity, working on operational issues, fixing pipelines. So these are infrastructural issues that were dealt with and which will sort of, increase the flow. They've helped with bringing, an increased participation in the market. So all of that is geared towards, bringing better profits for future. Right? It's not just, if flash in the pan for now. I believe that they're trying to go long term to ensure that come future, when they decide to, have a lot of Nigerians participate in terms of being shareholders, there will be investor confidence and things like that. So I think it's a long game.
From an industry standpoint, looking at this performance, does this signal a turning point for the general industry there, Nigeria's general oil and gas industry from upstream and downstream sector?
And we would like to remain positive. I only if I had a magic crystal ball, then I'll know that one. Then you can rest assured I'll use it on Nigerian Stock Exchange. Nobody really knows. But our desire is that, objectively, that is the case. The reason is because NNPC is part and parcel of the whole Nigerian system, like how you have blood vessels as part of a human body. You may not always see it forefront, but it is responsible for the bloodline and the flow of energy in this country. They have infrastructure, they have history, they have legacy issues, they have knowledge, they have the human resource capital. So it is inherently a microcosm of Nigeria. You want to see it succeed. So yes, I would like to remain on the positive end and believe that there are better days to come.
All right, and I'll share your optimism there. But what implications do these results have for investors? Both domestic and international. Is Nigeria becoming a more attractive destination for oil and gas investment?
Yes, yes, it is. I mean, the government's policies on the macro policies being done on the financial side to stabilize the naira and the FX is one of the contributors. It's not on its own isolated. It's not just NNPC. There are other things attached to it. So, like I said, the monetary policies and another key indicator, obviously, Dangote being a major player in oil and gas at the moment, is another contributor. So all those factors together will help prop up Nigeria itself with, the environment. I mean, we're becoming a net exporter of oil, a key kickoff destination for, shipping as a load point and not just a discharge point. So that also helps with NNPC in terms of when NNPC opens up for more investments, people can see what NNPC is doing, the level of transparency. It definitely will boost investor confidence to Nigeria as a whole, because they can see that, okay, we are growing and the key indicators are positive. So,
all right, so, still looking at those earnings there, profit after tax, 5.4 trillion naira. I'm sure the man on the streets will be wondering, revenue 45.1 trillion. How can this somehow, translate to maybe PMS price of around maybe 500 naira per liter or less? Is it possible? How much do we need to earn, or does this company need to earn to get us to that point?
I can tell you that their earnings, has nothing to do with making gasoline cheaper. That is a totally different thing. The health of the company has to do with the things they've put in place, the macro things they put in place and infrastructure to get them to a better place, build investor confidence. The question you are asking has to do more like with the cost of crude and the cost of refining that crude. That's what determines the cost of gasoline. A company's financial performance is just how they've managed themselves, to reduce debt and obviously increase profit. So obviously, that NNPC is owned 100% by the government. That money is government's money, except you're trying to, go back and introduce subsidy. But currently, what would happen is with the global drop in the cost of crude, it will invariably translate to cheaper gasoline products as it passes through a refinery. So just as any raw material, the cheaper it is, it will reflect, there will be a ripple effect in refining and transportation, and therefore cheaper product. So if I may just add, I don't know if you've seen the forecast, it's estimated that, crude will drop another $2-3 in the future. With the Russia-Ukraine peace deal in the offing, there's more talk about crude getting cheaper. So if that happens, yes, you will see cheaper gasoline, but not because of NNPC's bumper.
All right. Well, me, I'm just hoping for cheaper PMS.
You don't need it now. You're good.
All right. Thank you so much. It was great having this conversation with you, Dosu Odekunle, MD, Marquee and Synergy. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right, now we'll head straight to the global space now to find out what's playing out there. And we'll see the UK Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is calling for Labour MPs to unite ahead of the 2025 budget. But she's also warning that tough choices lie ahead. Let's get a sense of what she's signaling at this point. Join us is Juliana Olayinka, the London Bureau Chief, joins us via Zoom. Great to have you on the show, Juliana.
Good morning, Laddie.
Good morning. So, see, Reeves is urging unity, but she's also hinting that there'll be tough choices. What exactly is she signaling here?
Well, that's absolutely right. I think you laid it out perfectly there. Britain is waiting tomorrow for the autumn budget, which has been hotly anticipated over the past couple of weeks. And Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, who's been under pressure, I would say, for months now, has hit back at critics, not just in the media and within the Conservative Party, but within her own ranks, within the Labour Party, because there's just been so much disunity and discontent over the past couple of weeks. Now, if our viewers in the UK have been following this story, you'll be aware that there have been leaks of this statement, which she's going to announce in the Commons tomorrow. And I don't think that's helped with the markets, particularly the housing market. I think there are a lot of fears around a mansion tax. So if you own a home, mostly in London, in areas like St John's Wood and Finchley, you're likely going to be paying 25%, and those are big fears. So that's been difficult. There's also been leaks about the NHS, but the big thing, of course, is going to be tax rises, and they're expecting to be about £30 billion worth of tax rises. The Labour Party promised on multiple occasions that they wouldn't be able to do this, but I think Rachel Reeves's fiscal reforms have fallen pretty flat. There hasn't been any momentum, and Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, who's backed her over the past couple of months, he is also on the ropes. So it's going to be interesting, and let's just see what plays out in the press today. Right, definitely a wait and see at this point. But what other parts of this budget might Labour MPs struggle with? I think the huge discontent really has always been around the welfare tax, and also I think the elderly and pensions. I think also, we've been hearing in the local media from lots of young people around the country who are also feeling pretty disenfranchised. I was listening to Kemi Badenoch. She was speaking at the Confederation of British Industry, which is a huge lobby group. I believe they have over 100,000 members. And there are fears that even the high street is dying. So whereas young people in the UK that would be studying, they would be able to work in stores up and down the high streets, a lot of these high streets are dying because tax and business rates are really high. So I think there are lots of concerns. However, I think, the UK is still, of course, a very strong economy. And, there are areas of growth, particularly around AI and life sciences. But, Rachel Reeves has got to get it right. I think there are going to be some negative headlines around tax rises. But let's see if she's able to convince the British public to stand behind her fiscal, reforms and the government itself. All right, I guess all eyes on Rachel Reeves this week and the budget in the UK. Thank you so much, Juliana, for breaking it down for us. Thank you, Laddie. All right, now let's take it on to the U.S. U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order aimed at launching a pan-government venture to build an integrated artificial intelligence platform that will use federal scientific data. The venture, which Trump called the Genesis Mission, aims to boost scientific research and fast-track discoveries by using AI and massive government scientific data sets. And to EVs now, Tesla's European sales nearly halved in October, while Chinese rival BYD outsold the firm and also clinched a greater market share in the region. Tesla Inc. Registered 6,964 new cars in the European Union, Euro Free Trade region, and the UK in October, down 48.5% year-on-year,
That's data from the European Automobile Manufacturers Association, ASIA. That's the data that showed today. So definitely all eyes on how that plays out for the Tesla stock today. Then for tech now, we see Apple, that's a report on Bloomberg that they're cutting jobs across the sales team. I wonder why at this point. So we'll get more information on that, but that's one of the top stories right there in the global space. All right, before I let you go now, let's get a quick check now. What's playing out with the local bourse there? We're seeing the All-Share Index still looking for direction at this point, just about one basis point to the green, but that's been fluctuating this morning. But the most active stocks are being traded: Fidelity Bank, Make the Calls, Tantalizers, UBA, Wema Bank. Those are the active trades right now. We see the likes of Abbey Mortgage Bank also on top getters list. But we'll get you more updates later on. Remember, the NPC decides today for the 303rd meeting on how much it will cost you to borrow money. We'll cover that live at 1:30 on Business Incorporated today. And we'll also have analysis, pre-analysis and post-analysis of the direction of the rates. That's for the Monetary Policy Committee. But the consensus is we'll get another cut. It's the last meeting for this year. I'll catch you at that time. I'm Ladi Williams from the team right here at Channels HQ. It's bye for now.